And check. So, good morning, everybody. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I think we've got a great session for you. Just a couple things from my perspective. My name is Gary Durheim. I run marketing and managed services for PTP. So really enjoy sessions like these. I get the opportunity to host panel discussions and some webinars like this that we do, and always find them to be really engaging with our participants. Want to remind you that everybody is on mute. We have it set up as an event versus just a regular meeting, so that just keeps it a little cleaner from an audio perspective. If there are any questions, which we really encourage, go ahead and use either the Q&A or the chat feature. You can send it to everybody. You can send it to all the panelists, etc. I will be moderating those throughout the event, and I can stop one of the presenters as they're going through if you have a particular question and want to dive in. So just again, really encourage you to, if you want to dig deeper on any specific topic or something that comes up, please absolutely let us know about that, and we'll stop that. So today we've got a great team with us. We're going to start with Tad Davis, then we'll kick it over to Toby and Mike from the NOps team, and then we'll close with Hong from PTP. So you'll get a little bit different, slightly different content and messages from each of the participants. What we'll start with from a module perspective is going to be just the framework of the AWS well-architected. So just hey, what it is, and kind of dive into this foundational framework, and that'll be kind of the foundation again of our discussion. Then we're going to shift to the NOps team and really get into tools and tricks and platforms for reviewing that. So it's one thing to understand obviously what the framework is. It's another thing to be able to analyze an AWS environment against that framework, and then really have data that's meaningful, that's consumable, that you can act on. And then the last module will shift to Hong from PTP. He's one of the cloud architects on our side that actually delivers well-architected reviews for our customers. So he can share a little bit about a day in the life and what it looks like to actually leverage the platform and deliver the data back, and then how we prioritize and make recommendations back to organizations. So that'll be the flow for the day. I do want to remind you that we will be doing a quiz throughout the event. So at the end of each module, we're going to be doing a Kahoot quiz. So I'll have the individual that's presenting pass the ball back to me. We'll put up the quiz. So what you'll need to do to participate in that is either download the app to your mobile device from Kahoot, or you can use a separate browser and log in on that browser. When we start the first time, I'll kick off the quiz. You'll see the game pin. You'll enter the game pin, then we'll be able to see everybody join, and you'll just put yourself a nickname up there that you understand, and then we can roll from there. You don't need to create a login to join. You'll be able to just go to Kahoot and join from your with the game pin. So the questions won't be super difficult, but they will probably require you to be paying attention to some of the presentations. So first place will be a $200 Amazon gift card. Second is a $100 Amazon gift card, and third place is $50. So there is something worthwhile, I think, to kind of stay in focus for the next couple hours or a little bit less. The way, if you haven't played the Kahoot quizzes before, it is time-based. So it's not just getting the answer, but it's getting the answer quickly. So again, just so you're aware, so everybody's on the same page to start. So that'll be the quiz portion. We'll do that on three separate times, one after each module. And then at the end of the event, after we've wrapped and made sure that there's any Q&A, we'll do a raffle for whoever is on the call at the end for a pair of Apple AirPods Pro. So again, definitely worth you guys kind of staying locked in, and somebody will be a lucky winner of some AirPods. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Tad. And what I'm going to do is just allow each of the panelists to introduce themselves when they kick off. That way, kind of avoid me having to introduce everybody and just allow them to do that themselves. So with that, Tad, I am passing you the ball.
Hey, thanks, Gary. So my name is Tad Davis. I'm with Ingram Micro Cloud, and I'm a global cloud solutions engineer for Ingram Micro Cloud. Let me see. Uh, Panelists or Gary, give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Looks good. All right, good deal. All right, so you know who I am. So well architected is a topic I like to talk about a lot. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Why are we here? That's a bit of an existential question that's not really appropriate for today. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into this and say, why are we here about well architected? So it's really to build the foundation. Well architected is a foundation that AWS wants you to be able to use this foundation to be able to help use these best practices cultivated from AWS and their customers to apply to your workload. So the first part of that is enablement, right? Build the internal team knowledge for your team about the well-architected framework. Then it's being able to scale the competency, scale the adoption. One of the things a lot of people on the call have already done, but if you haven't done it before, go out and find on the APN Partner Central the well-architected badge. It's a 3.5-hour course. You can take that and earn your well-architected badge. And it's not technical. It's I would say that understanding well-architected framework is not something that requires technical expertise. I would say remediating high-risk issues that come out of a well-architected review requires more technical expertise. So I say that because I want to be able to teach you about this, train you a little bit more, but not fear it because people may say, "Oh, this is too technical for me." So what is a well-architected framework? Um, it's really answering that question. Are you well architected? How confident are you that you're following best practices for the cloud? Um, Hopefully you'd say yes when you're thinking about this, but let's dive into this a little bit more. So it says a brief history of well architected. So I do want to point out, when we kick this off, well architected started in 2012. So that's almost 10 years old now. Then AWS Solutions Architects started doing reviews using the well-architected framework in 2013. I do want to point out well-architected framework, when it started, consisted of 4 pillars. So you start seeing questions that are across the 4 pillars in 2014. The framework was then published and made public in 2015. Operational excellence was added in 2016. Then APN partners and lenses were added in 2017. Self-service implementation plans in 2018. When we think about the well-architected partner program in multiple regions, that started happening more in 2019. Jumping back to 2018 real quick, this is where we started seeing the well-architected tool. And then there's a framework update, right? So now we see a serverless lens. We've talked I've talked about foundational technical reviews for ISVs and things like that. So there's an FTR lens that you can apply to the well-architected tool as well. So let's jump in a little bit more. Why well-architected? So there's a set of design principles that we'll look at here. And these are the general ones that we'll get into a little bit more in the next few slides. But we want you to be able to build and deploy faster. Not firefight so many issues so much, but really being able to use automation and be able to experiment and release value content more often. Be able to lower and mitigate your risks. So be able to understand where you have risk in your architecture and address them before they come, production impacting. Make informed decisions about what you have in your architecture that highlight how it may impact business incomes. This actually gets into trade-offs. So I might need to trade cost for reliability. I may need to trade security for cost. It's a weird thing to say, but it's all about the business decisions and trade-offs there. And then learn AWS best practices. So make sure your teams are aware of the best practices. So a mechanism for the cloud journey. So you're going to learn the strategies of best practices. You're going to measure your architecture against them and then improve the architecture based on addressing any issues that come up. So let's get into the well-architected framework. There are 5 pillars, and I'm actually going to, let's see if I can bring it up real quick. I'll bring this up real quick because I want to be able to show you this and kind of have you follow along with this when we get into the pillars and everything. Hold on just a sec. There we go. Nice map. I'm going to show this at the end of the presentation, and it's a good slide, but I prefer to show this now because I want you to see it looks a little scary at first with all the spider webs and stuff like that, but it consists of the 5 pillars. We're going to talk about operational excellence, security, reliability, performance, efficiency, and cost optimization. But each of these have underlying design principles and then questions that are in the well-architected tool that address best practices for those design principles that make up the well-architected framework. So feel free to use this. I will drop the link in here after I'm done presenting, but if you captured it there, it's wa.aws.amazon.com. And then well-architected tool, the wat.map.en.html. So those are the pillars that we're talking about, the design principles that make up those pillars, and then the questions that inform the best practices around the design principles. So the pillars are well architected. You guys should know these, you just saw them. But they are operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. So if you neglect any of these when you're architecting, then you're going to end up with some risk introduced into your environment. Those risks can be medium, they could be high risk. That's what the well-architected tool jumps into and helps out a little bit. And this is where the great value of InOps comes into this as well, is that integration to the well-architected tool. And you'll see that in later presentations from today. All right, so let's jump into design principles. So what are some, we've got general design principles. So if I think about these pillars, there's general design principles here. If I click on here and go into the well-architected framework, it's another reason why I love this map. But I can go into general design principles. We'll cover these in a minute. If you ever need to get back to the map, you can click in the upper right-hand link. And then there's going to be pillar-specific design principles, which are these out here in the second circle, if you will. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the general ones. So you want to be able to automate responses into security events. That's one of them, but let's look at it a little bit more. So general design principles, we want to be able to stop guessing your capacity needs. So think about this before you move to the cloud, or even if you're still working in an on-prem environment. You always have to guess capacity, right? So I remember when in another lifetime before this, where I worked at HP, and we'd have to take our applications before a review group and justify, why we need this many servers, number one, why we need this many servers with this type of CPU, this type of RAM, with the type of storage, with the type of throughput, the networking throughput that we needed. And it's always something that you're making an estimate on, trying to figure out if that's going to work in a 3-year cycle. We did 3-year cycles at that time as far as hardware refresh. This, you want to be able to stop guessing your infrastructure and be able to address any additional capacity needed or reducing capacity when it's not needed based on your current demand, right? So the other parts of this are test your systems at scale. So be able to think about on-prem again. I could have a production environment, but very rarely could I make a a dev environment that mirrored exactly the production environment because of the cost involved. So it's hard to test that at scale. So when you normally went to production, you would find a whole new class of issues that maybe you didn't run into when you're doing your dev environment. You want to be able to automate and make architectural experimentation easier. So you don't want to relying on static architectures that you can't change. And you want to be able to try to automate this to make it move faster, move and make changes, not necessarily on the fly, but make automated changes as you go through this. You want to allow for evolutionary architectures. Um, you also want to drive architectures using data, so being informed about the different data sets that you're getting about your environment or your workload and adjusting architecture accordingly. And then you can improve through game days. Game days could be different scenarios that you do to practice, failures that may occur. One of the things I'll mention here, if you've never explored it before, is the fault injection service that came out from AWS and went GA earlier this year. It's a variation on what Netflix has been doing for a long time with the Simian Army, if you're not familiar with that. But it's a way to introduce faults into production systems and making sure you can recover accordingly. So well-architected review, what's the intent of the review? So if anybody remembers, and I show my age here on this one like that, but you remember a movie called Kindergarten Cop? Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I've got a headache. And one of the kids says, it's a tumor. And he goes, it's not a tumor. So I always say that when about a well-architected review. It's not an audit. So don't think of it that this is a way that you're going to be critiqued and criticized and shown that, you're failing at these areas and this is good. It's not an audit. It's helping to improve your processes that are out there. It's helping you think about decisions that maybe just weren't considered when you were building this out. It's also not intended to be, for you to be an architecture astronaut, to be able to figure this out, to automate or to architect for everything. And it's not a one-time check. So I want to pause there real quick. Well-architected reviews should never be a one-time and done thing on workloads. It needs to be done again and again as features improvements are made to that particular workload. You always want to do another well-architected review to make sure that you're still not missing any high-risk issues that you may have introduced when you added features to your workload. So what has AWS learned about well-architected reviews? The earlier that you review in the life cycle, the better. It's easier to fix things and it can help influence the design. So I've talked about this before. So it's not that you had any particularly poor decisions about what you did with your architecture. It's usually neglecting certain decisions and not thinking about asking particular questions. And then most workloads do have high risk items that need to be remediated. The idea is to address them, even if you're going to market, next week. Do a well-architected review this week. Addressing those issues, working on trying to be aware of any kind of risk that's out there already is only going to help make your process better when you get ready to go to production. All right, so what are some use cases? Use cases could be, learning the best practices for the cloud. So how do I do this in cloud? How are others doing this as in cloud? The well-architected framework really contains a set of best practices that AWS has developed and acquired throughout almost a decade now, like I was talking about, of analyzing, designing, operating workloads with their customers. Customers use the framework as a way to provide guidance on the way that they now do processes in the cloud. It's also a way to check to help you understand any types of governance issues that you may face because of the industry that you're in. And then with the well-architected framework used across the whole portfolio, you get an aggregate view of how the teams are maturing. You start with one workload. I would say you start with one, you start doing the well-architected reviews, and then as people become more involved and more practiced, you begin applying this to your environment. You become more mature in the way that you develop this across your whole aggregated environment. So what is a workload? So I want to read this for a minute, so bear with me. I'm not always a fan of reading things and stuff like that in presentations. But the well-architected framework defines a workload as follows. So workload identifies a set of components that together deliver business value. The workload is usually the level of detail that a business and technology leaders communicate about. Examples of workloads are marketing websites, e-commerce websites, the backends for mobile app, analytic platforms. Workloads vary in levels of architectural complexity from static websites to architectures with multiple data stores and many components. So think about a workload as the people, the teams, the processes, the runbooks, the technology, the infrastructure that help deliver overall business value for your end customer. Okay, so key concepts on workloads. So we just talked about a workload, people, teams, processes, runbooks, right? Overall architecture. So we want to make sure that when we're talking about a well-architected review, we want to identify who's the sponsor, who's the owner of that workload. And then think about the pillars before. I'm going to bring this back so we can remember what they were. We've got these pillars. Is there somebody that in your organization that can speak to the security pillar? That should be the owner of that pillar as you move forward. Doing more well-architected reviews. The same around cost optimization. This may be somebody from finance. This may be somebody from your security team that manages not only on-premise security but cloud security. So there's 3 phases to a well-architected review. You want to be able to prepare. You want to be able to identify sponsors, scope the workload, and prep the customer about the particular well-architected review. Then you want to be able to review the workload, record the review, publish the report. And then HRIs. What are HRIs? I talked about that a little bit earlier. Those are high-risk issues. So you want to be able to have to guide people on their reviews and then provide a treatment plan. Those are the 3 phases to a well-architected review. So when we think about well-architected reviews in the business sense like this, as far as an organization, they can start off, and often they do start off as something that is done by an individual at first. An individual that wants to gain this experience to start adopting AWS best practices and thinking about how they can guide their architecture going forward based on this well-architected framework. That grows, right? It grows into a cross-functional team. It's good to prepare and think about how I can teach others about the well-architected framework. As we do this more and more across different workloads, we're going to learn more and we're going to be able to use the well-architected tool. And then, there's another facet to it, right? And so this is where Hong comes in, and we're going to be talking about this as far as what the PTP can provide, because then, if you're not familiar with how to do a well-architected review or use the well-architected framework, and it's taking that time to be able to learn about this process, that's where PTP can come in, use the well-architected tool, perform well-architected reviews using the NOps tool, share those results, try to work with you as far as how you address those high-risk issues. And it's only going to help develop you and encourage you more about learning about the well-architected framework. And then there's also an AWS-led review that can be done. AWS can do, so I would say it this way. So AWS can do a well-architected review. They can share the results. That's good for workloads. The reason why well-architected program was scaled out to partners is 2 reasons. One is that is scale, right? So AWS can only do so many well-architected reviews for their customers, but by being able to have the partner base work on well-architected reviews and use the well-architected tool, that allows AWS to scale. That's one. Second part of that is that AWS, when they lead a well-architected review, they can do no hands-on remediation. So that's a liability issue for AWS. That's where your partner can give that hands-on support and provide that kind of value to you. So when we think about the well-architected process, it's a virtuous cycle, right? So it's one that you prepare, you do the review, you improve based on improving and addressing those high risk issues that we talked about, but then you apply it to other workloads and you continue to apply it, right? You continue to apply it to the particular workload that's changed if you're adding new features or if it's, you know, being updated to a new version for some reason or another. So what's available in the well-architected framework? So as far as content out there, you can learn about the well-architected framework. If you guys are fans of white papers, white papers are great things to go to sleep by, right? Because they can be very dry and hard to gauge. And while the white papers that are out there for well-architected are great, just make sure you've got a cup of coffee with them because it can be a little tedious going through, a 60-page white paper on that. And when we think about the well-architected framework, when I go back to here, so there is a white paper on the AWS well-architected framework, and then there's a white paper on each of the 5 different pillars here as well. And then you can get into white papers about the lenses too. But there's also training and website content available through AWS. For the tool, you're going to have some great resources, content summaries, glossaries, dashboard. So when we get into this, I'll show you a little bit more what it looks like on the next slide. I don't want to dive too much into the tool because there's a good example there. And then the data, right? So being able to document the workloads, being able to identify which pillars are a priority, and during the reviews, figuring out, what is going to be our focus? What are the ones that we need to focus on for the sake of cost, or for the sake of security, or for the sake of reliability? So that being said, here's some other great content, the well-architected framework. I just showed you this. So this is where we go for this map. Again, love this map. And this map, I would say if you're going to do any kind of, if you're going to go through the training course that AWS has for well-architected badge, it's a free training course. Like I said, all it can do is help you and learn a little bit more about each of the different pillars in the framework. It is a 3.5-hour course. It doesn't cost anything but time. You do have to pass a couple of tests at the end, but use this map. This map will help you go through the tests at the end. And it's those kind of tests where, you take them until you get a 75% passing score. It's not a certification where, if you don't make it, then good luck next time and you got to pay for another exam. Last thing in here is the well-architected tool. So the well-architected tool will have resources to address things as far as the particular question that's talking about a best practice, and it may have video content in there as well. The last thing in here, well, I've got one more slide, so I lied. Sorry about that. Are well-architected labs. If you want to get more experience with working in the well-architected pillars, you can go to wellarchitectedlabs.com. No login needed, necessary, anything like that. And there's several 100, 200, 300, 400 level classes, or I should say labs, that you can do to learn a little bit more about well-architected based on all the different 5 pillars. And there's some around the well-architected tool as well. So last thing, promise this is the last thing, is the solutions library. So just take some time, explore the AWS solutions library. It's a great way to find pre-built solutions or service patterns that'll help get you started that have been vetted by AWS. So with that, are there any questions?
I haven't seen anything come up on the Q&A, but anyone feel free to go ahead and pop anything in if you want, and we'll be happy to address those. And I think the interesting thing for me is, you used your old movie reference. Mine's from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, and that feels like the cloud really is. We've talked about this on a number of occasions. Is there's endless possibilities in terms of how to architect and deploy and scale. The concept behind well architected is simply to put the right the right controls around that and evaluate what you've done. And as you continue to develop, like you said, it's a repeat process. It's not something that you do once. So that's the concept. So thank you very much for that. Tad, that was fantastic. So now we're going to shift to our first Kahoot quiz. I'm going to this. We have possibly a good challenge this morning, and that is we've got a lot of attendees, and it's possible that this quiz is going to max out. So I have an alternate plan, but let's go ahead and if you're interested in playing the quiz and you want to vie for the gift cards, go ahead and log in. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. We'll see if we need to use my backup plan. So let's go ahead and roll this way. Let me share my screen. And if I need to, we'll do multiple quizzes. Okay, so if you are ready, go ahead and enter your game pin. We'll see, so Nick's on, we'll go ahead and see players. I'm gonna give it a couple minutes. Message if you're trying to get in and you have trouble. If that's the case, we're gonna go to our second option. Because you know what, we can rally.
Yeah, keep in mind too, some of the things with Kahoot. So you can join through your browser, you can join through the app. If we get to where we're going to use Kahoot for everything, when you're looking at your browser, you're looking at your app, you're going to answer based on the color that represents the answer on Gary's screen. So you won't always see the answers, the choices, I should say, show up on your screen. So you got to look and then choose the best color for that. Looks like you're getting a lot of good attendees in here, so that's good.
Yeah.
You do have to identify who you are, I guess, at the end, Gary, because, for
Yep.
Rhino 0, that probably doesn't translate somebody's name very well.
I think that should be my challenge, is to try to map that back to an attendee name. So we've got 13 in. Anybody else that wants to jump in, please do. We've got another couple minutes. I think it's possible that 20 is the max, and we've got a lot more attendees than that. So if anybody else wants to jump in, let's do that. Otherwise, we'll get rolling. This is at a statistical advantage now. All right, let's go ahead and start. So like I said, we're going to do this multiple times throughout the morning. So we'll start with the first 3 questions now, and then we'll hand it over to the InOps team. There's 14. All right. 10 seconds if anybody's trying to get in. All right, here we go. First question. When did the well-architected framework start at AWS?
Just remember to choose the color.
Choose the color on your device, and speed matters.
Yeah. Getting close, I think at 5. Yeah, so I'll give a hint. It was the year that the world was supposed to end, if you remember, according to the Mayan calendar. Yeah. So.
All right, so we got 7 that got that answer right. So we'll show you kind of where the leaderboard is here.
All right.
Very good. All right. Question number 2. Like I said, we'll do 3 questions this round, and then we'll go back to the presentation material. Next question. Which of these is not a pillar of the well-architected framework? 13 answers.
Okay, good.
Everybody's answered. All right, congrats. Looks like we had some people paying attention or know their 5 pillars. Nice.
Katie is still with the lead. Yeah. People moving on up.
And third question. True or false? A well-architected review is an audit of an environment.
Yes, this is why I invoked my Arnold voice. That should
That's
help
right.
you on this one.
You go, wow. Okay. So that
That's a
was the yeah,
disagreement.
that was
Yeah.
the point that Tad made. So it's not an audit, it's a review, right? So there's flexibility. It is a framework that's built there. So that's why that is false. Do you
Yeah, in
want
the same
any
context too, like
clarification,
that
Tad?
it's not a certification. Like don't think of that's why they say it's not an audit. Like that you don't want to you're not going to come out of going like, oh, AWS or INOps or PTP has certified that this is going to be guaranteed to work. So not an audit.
Okay. So top
Hey,
three right now. Pooh, Acadia, and Blue Rhino Zero are our top three. All right. Good job. Stop sharing. And Toby,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Good
have the
morning.
ball.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you. There, I do have a question. Uh, okay, that's just related to the quiz. So we're good. Go ahead, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Good morning, everybody. My name is Toby Amy, Director of Channel Sales here at NOps. I'm very excited to speak with you guys today about well-architected, and I'm going to be covering the tools to review your environment against the well-architected framework. That's where NOps comes into play. So, I've been over here for a little over a year and a half, and, I've spoken to a lot of customers and a lot of partners, and I think what we've learned over the past year and a half is that most companies let their employees run the cloud like it's the wild, wild west. It's all about convenience, getting a workload spun up, um, and really getting to work. And that's very dangerous, but it's also very typical in this world that we play in. And what ends up happening is, you end up spending a lot of money and really wasting a lot of money. Um, High cost, low profit. You end up spending hundreds of hours of labor to try to get either a well-architected framework done, review done, or some type of assessment. There's a lot of manual monitoring in place, and I mean that by, I've seen customers that have spreadsheets and they're using many different tools, whether it's Cloud Checker or the AWS Cost Explorer or Cloud Health. It's a hodgepodge of many different tools, and it ends up putting a strain on productivity, and it doesn't really allow your team to move fast, right? There's a lot of unaccounted costs. Security starts to become a big issue. And like I said, you end up really losing a lot of money or wasting a lot of money and really not making out. So what we've found is that there's this balance of bureaucracy, of governance, and really the freedom to innovate. So really giving your team the ability to go, build these environments, giving them full autonomy. But on the back end of that, they have tools like NOps, which are out there doing all the work for you. They're out there. NOps is constantly trudging through all the metadata, looking for gaps in your workloads. Where are you not aligned with that well-architected framework? And really having these tools that are automated for you, right? And what ends up happening is you have an increased productivity, allowing people to really go focus on their job, removing these roadblocks. Your security really starts to beef up because now we're looking at the well-architected framework from a security perspective, and is it MFA is not installed, or whatever the gap is, we're going to let you know. You end up having a huge time savings, 95% time savings, because again, the tools out there identifying these high risk issues, these gaps that are in your environment. And cost savings is big too. I've been here a year and a half, and I've seen 100% of the time some type of cost savings come out of this tool. And typical is around 18 to 50%. Just by connecting the tool into NOps and letting it run and start to do its thing. So that's kind of where we start to see the time savings and cost savings. The solution is obviously is NOps. It's a full-blown 2.0 cloud management and intelligence tool that's built on AWS for AWS. So it's allowing you to find unaccounted cost, you know, analyzing all your taggings and your strategy there, and then being able to find unaccounted cost or underutilized resources. Start to eliminate billing surprises by using chargebacks or all the notifications that are going to allow you to identify these issues in real time. And then you're continuously aligned with the well-architected framework. So a well-architected framework is great, and you'll be in compliance, but these environments are very dynamic. So what happens when you add a new workload or you make some changes? Now your well-architected review is out of sync and you need to do another one. So, through PTP and Ingram, by having NOps, you're constantly aligned with that well-architected framework. If there's issues where you need to have those remediated, you know that you can count on PTP or get those fixed internally. And really just continue to allow that collaboration and that accountability that you can build inside of NOps, being able to see where specific budgets are going over or where security is not implementing correctly, and being able to go and Slack your counterpart, or send an email or a notification through PagerDuty, or open up a ticket in Jira, really allowing you to collaborate and hold people accountable from a budget perspective and some of the policies that you set into place. Nick Cobb here on the left is one of senior engineering manager over at Uber, and they were able to see a 15% savings within the first 30 days. Now, 15% may not seem like a lot, but when you're talking multi-millions of dollars every month, that 15% adds up really quickly. And this is typical. I see this all the time of some type of cost savings to come out of the platform. We're very serious about our skills. So, we've been used in hundreds, if not thousands, of well-architected reviews. We're part of the ISV Accelerate program, which just essentially means that the AWS team inside are really incented to help drive these opportunities because they're paid for it, but it's also important. Well-architected is that framework, and you're going to start to hear more about it as we roll into the new year. If you're going to be at reInvent, start listening. You're going to see how more well-architected starts to become really that base, that foundation of before you build a workload, constantly making sure you're well-architected. On the right here, you'll see well-architected in the middle. That's kind of where we started. We started out of a need for well-architected, a way for our CEO at the time to go faster through that process. And really, as the tool started to develop, we started adding resource and cost optimization. We added, security and compliance. So if you're going through audits or need to have real-time alerting, you can do that. Our change management feature is probably one of the strongest in the industry because we track everything to a dollar amount. So any change that's happening in your environment, we're going to let you know how that's going to affect your budget month to month from a cost perspective. And then automation, being able to set up all these workflows, how to discover HRIs, what's the process for alerting and being on top of those, can all be done with inside the tool. So that's my quick overview of kind of who we are and what we do. I know I blew through that, but I think the demo that we're going to do with Mike here will really start to open the aperture. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box. Mike, I guess I can turn it over to you from here.
Cool. I just passed him the ball, so you should be in good shape.
Awesome. Looking good. Cool. Thanks, Toby. Yeah, my name's Mike Till. I'm a sales engineer here at NOps, and today we'll do a high-level pass-through of the NOps platform, and we'll wrap it up with a big focus on well-architected and how we can assist with that process and streamline it and make it easier. So I'm going to share my screen out here real quick. Okay, let me rearrange some windows, get some real estate here. Okay. So this is the NOps platform, and as Toby mentioned, we are a full-blown cloud management platform. We were built around well-architected principles, and everything that we do, you can tie back to one of those 5 pillars. We do everything from cost reporting to cost optimization, calling out changes that are taking place within your environment. We have a rule set that you can see where you fall in line with well-architected principles, as well as various compliance reporting and all that fun stuff. So a lot of content within the platform here. We cover a wide range of different areas within an organization. Today, I'm just going to kind of show you the highlights and then really dive into the well-architected piece. So I'll start right here with this cost dashboard. Honestly, it's a great place to begin. Everyone, is moving and has moved to the cloud because of the holy grail of cost savings, which it certainly can be. But if you're not careful, as we have discussed, it can be the wild, wild west out there. And if you're not careful, you can actually end up spending more than you anticipated. So the cost dashboard's pretty straightforward, just a high level look at your environment from a cost perspective. So you got your cost trends there, some high level cost changes that we've noticed. And then if you're really trying to save some money, this is really a great place to start. We're identifying underutilized resources, whether it's EC2, RDS, or S3, based on how often you're accessing those S3 buckets. My personal favorite are the unused resources, because that's the lowest hanging fruit that you could probably get your hands on. When I say unused resources, I mean things like unattached EBS volumes, unused EIPs, unused NAT gateways. These are all things that if you're not careful can fall through the cracks and just quietly accrue cost, even though they're not being used. Unattached EBS volumes in particular, I see constantly in a lot of the engagements that we're a part of. Usually they're artifacts of old test environments, or someone spun down the EC2, but if they didn't do their due diligence and turn off the EBS volume, it just sits there orphaned and racks up costs. So these are the types of things that we're looking for. As you can see, you can tell exactly which account these EBS volumes are a part of, when they were detected, what the cost is to keep them running, and we factor in the overall savings in here if you were to turn all of these off. Maybe you need these for whatever reason. Maybe you don't want to just straight up decommission them. If you can, snapshot them, because it's much cheaper to keep the snapshot than it is to have the actual hardware reserved. But again, there may be cases where there's a valid business reason as to why you need to have this reserved. If that's the case, you have override actions in here, so they drop off the potential savings. NOps is very flexible in that regard, as we try to mold the platform to your organizational needs. To kind of run out the rest of the cost side here, we have a whole suite of tools around cost reporting. This is our cost control tool, which is great. It really helps you get in and dissect that cost and usage report and understand exactly where your cost centers are. You got different perspectives on the top here. I just want to see what my cloud costs are by account. There you go. Down at the bottom there, you got your graphs here. It's all very reactive. You can set custom time frames if you want to. You can filter out tags, specific regions. So if I just want to look at US West 2, I just click the button and then boom, there you go. There's all the cost for US West 2 across my my accounts. Maybe I just want to see cloud services, so I can go ahead and click on cloud services. We're still looking at US West 2, as you can see. And now instead of looking at it by an account basis, we're looking at it by a service basis. So looks like for whatever, for the last 30 days or so, our biggest cost center internally has been RDS. And you can see, how you compare to the last 3 months. You got your table of, every day for the last 30 days. And then again, you can drill in into these figures as you need to. I clicked on October 21st. I can see all the resources or all the RDS instances that were accruing costs on that day. And we even do include operations and the usage types as well. So, we try to start at a very high level, make sure you're comfortable, and then allow you to drill into the, the usage type level of detail if you're looking for it. We also pull in tags, cost allocation tags, and all that fun stuff. This is handy to see exactly how your tags are trending over the last day, 7 days, or the month. And of course, you can always jump in and see the key values as well. Aside from that, Tag Explorer is great, especially if you guys, use tags heavily, which every organization should. It's a great way to make sure cost is accounted for. I believe some of the questions in the well-architected review even are around tagging and making sure cost is accounted for. As you can see in our internal account, we don't do the best job with tagging. As you can see here, we got about $5,000 of untagged resources kicking about. And again, we show exactly what those cost centers are by tag. You can drill in here and take a look at, in this case, the untagged resources that we have. Let's take a look at the EC2s that are untagged, and here you go. Here's the accounts that they're a part of, what region, and the exact resource themselves. So you could take this, bring it to your guys to tag up, and just make sure, you know, all your cost is being accounted for. I'm sure your finance folks would, you know, greatly appreciate that. And I won't dive into the rest of this too heavy today, but, you know, we have right sizing recommendations, RI recommendations, spot recommendations, all things tied to the cost optimization piece here, as well as chargebacks and budgeting. So you can set budgets around really any group of resources that you define, whether it's by an account or multiple VPCs, or maybe again, you're using tags for budgeting. So you can pick and pull whatever you need to build a budget around those collections of resources. Now, we'll change gears here a little bit. We're gonna move out of the cost side of the house a little bit and start getting into more of the security, the well-architected piece, change management. As Toby mentioned, we take change management very seriously. You can track your cost changes here. You can see from a daily, weekly, or monthly perspective, you know, how your costs have been changing. Again, using the filters on the left, you can kind of pick and pull things out of this report as you needed. But right now we're showing you all of your cost increases, whether it's by account or by service or by a specific usage type. You can do cost decreases as well, which is great. This is another one of my personal favorites, because this means you're saving money and not spending as much. But we track all these details. Same thing for CloudTrail. For the security folks on the call, or those that need to just monitor CloudTrail and make sure everything that's going out in the environment, you know, makes sense and is as predicted. So you can hop in here. You can see all the changes that have taken place on a given day. We'll show you exactly what the changes were. I'll click on this one here as an example. You know, this is a delete database snapshot event. You can see the exact snapshots that were deleted, when they were deleted, and, you know, who essentially deleted them. In this case, it's the AWS backup service, and it looks like we had a Lambda function as well.
Mike, I do have a question whenever you get to a stopping point.
Yeah, go for it.
So a question came in from the chat. How automated is NOps? Is the user approving all of the changes, or is there a mixture of automated and manual approval?
So we're not going to be, you know, dictating the changes, you know, whether you approve them or not. We're a reporting engine first and foremost. So we're just ingesting the data into NOps and showing you the things that have taken place. So we're not going to be making any changes. You can't approve the changes, you know, within NOps for AWS that are going on. We're purely ingesting the data into the platform. And I guess just kind of shed a little bit more color on that. We use a CloudFormation template to essentially create a role on the AWS account. It attaches a read-only policy that allows us to pull in all the different data points. So that's typically how it works. Any other questions?
That's what I see right now.
Cool. Yeah, feel free to stop me at any point if more come in.
You bet.
All right. So really the rest of this is really getting geared towards the well-architected framework part of the house. I'll start with the NOps rules, because this really is our own personally curated list of best practice checks that we use to accent the well-architected review, which we'll get to here in a minute, and how this kind of speeds up that process. But this is also in line with various compliance frameworks out there like CIS or HIPAA or SOC 2. So these are curated from the well-architected reviews, the compliance, various compliance frameworks, even our own customer base. We take feedback very seriously. So if you guys, end up using NOps down the road and there's a certain check that you really want to see, let us know. We take all this back to our engineering team, and more often than not, it gets added into the platform. But you can see that we have the 5 pillars up here. We also have the change management piece in here, so you can see things that are falling out of line or that are changing within the rule set. From a security perspective, just a quick highlight, some of the things we're looking at, what S3 buckets are unencrypted in the environment? Do you have any unused IAM roles? And if you're already familiar with well-architected, you kind of, see the gears turning a little bit and see how these kind of align with some of the questions with the well-architected framework review, which is a perfect segue to just jump right into that. So within NOps, you can do a well-architected review. It syncs perfectly with the well-architected tool in AWS, which is recommended because that's how you actually will submit it to AWS. A lot of great benefits for doing the well-architected review. You get a good baseline of where you stand in regards to those well-architected principles, as Tad has talked already. But there's also additional potential funding credits that you can get from AWS. You can get up to $5,000 in potential remediation credits. As you can tell, AWS is very big on well-architected and doing what they can to make sure that their partners and their customers are building to those well-architected principles. So in the workload section here, if you're going to be doing a well-architected review, you have to build it, or you have to do it around a workload. And a workload can be very nebulous as far as the concept of what a workload is. One organization, they might have their production accounts in just one account, or maybe they have their production workload span across, multiple VPCs, or maybe they have it all categorized by tags. So the first order of business is to really define that workload and, get your arms around those resources that you want to put through the well-architected review. So that's the first step. You put the name into the workload here, so you know what it is, what type of review you're going to do. In this case, we're going to be doing the well-architected. We can also support the FTR lens as well. So, any ISVs out there that are, looking to go through an FTR, we can help with that as well. You're going to want to create the workload on the AWS account, which is how it syncs with the well-architected tool in AWS. It's very simple. You just select the account that you want to save it on. And then from there, it's just, like I said, defining the resources that you want to put through the review. So what accounts are we pulling resources from? You can kind of grab whatever you need there. I just clicked 3 at random. And then down here below, you can even get, into some finer details. Do I just want to look at EC2? You could certainly do that if you wanted. Or maybe I just want to look at US West 2. Or maybe it's everything within a couple VPCs. Or again, we can bring in the tag keys and values here. Again, we just try to make it as flexible as possible based on how you guys are currently architected. So once you do that, as you can see, we have a lot of pages of workloads in our internal environment here. I believe on page 4, I got a good one here. Maybe it's page 3. Here we go. So once you create the workload, you click on it and you hop in, you get brought to this high-level overview page of that workload and how far through the assessment you currently are. You got your 37 unanswered questions. We're about 30% of the way through the assessment. We'll identify any medium or high-risk issues as well. You can attach documents directly to the workload, which is important because, I know for some of the reliability pillar questions, a lot of it's around, do you have a disaster recovery policy in place? If so, you're going to want to attach that diagram or that policy here. It just makes it easier when you submit it to AWS. They have all the information there when they go through it. You get a high-level look across how many issues you have through the 5 pillars. And then lastly, you can even create a budget around the workload as well, which is great because I believe some of the cost questions are around, do you have a budget for your workload? So in using NOps, you actually meet the requirements of that particular question. And then from there, you hop right in, and here it is. Here's the 5 pillars. You got all the questions. I love how, they say it's, just 10 questions, 11 questions or so, but really there's a lot of sub questions that kind of go along with it. But we have it all here. These are the same questions you would see in AWS, with the added benefit of NOps actually auto answering a good portion of these questions based on the data that we're ingesting. So a perfect example of this is this secure AWS account question. We also do include the descriptions here, which kind of gives a little bit more color as to what AWS is looking for, because I know sometimes they can be a little vague. In this case, it's looking to make sure that you have MFA enabled, you're restricting the use of the root user, and you have account contacts configured. We can see all of that in our ingestion, therefore we answered it as a non-violation. We'll also call out things that might be issues as well. For example, keep up to date with security recommendations. That's pretty straightforward. But we'll show you the exact rule that is being violated that is, answering this question as an issue. In this case, guard duty was disabled for all of the accounts, which helps with threat detection and continuous monitoring. So if that was enabled, you would be you'd be clearing that particular question. And lastly, you can go through and you can add labels and, tag the questions as well, which can help organize you and build out a roadmap to get well architected. For example, maybe this one here is a high priority item. You can go ahead and add the labels there. Maybe down here, this one is low priority. Oh man, if I could spell, that'd be great. There you go. So you can create the tags on the fly and label these. So, at the end of the day, when you export the report out of NOps, it'll show you across the 5 pillars what you have labeled, what's high priority, what's low priority. So you can kind of determine what you want to tackle first as opposed to later. And then lastly, you can add notes. I'm going to delete these out of here real quick. You can add notes for color to some of the answers. I'm a big fan of, it's better to have too much information than not enough when going through these types of reviews. So you can always add, context to around why you built something a certain way here. You can even create recommendations in here. So, maybe you have another person on the security side, maybe I recommend, we implement this particular fix to address this particular question. So, you can also save recommendations in here and pull from a template database more or less if you need to. So, we're trying to streamline this well-architected process as fast as possible for you guys going through this. So that's it. You go through, you answer the questions. Once you're done, you submit the report to AWS. It syncs with the well-architected tool. I'm going to actually save what the export looks like for NOps here, because I think Hong's going to be going through that here on his section. So once you go through the well-architected process, that's great. You know where you stand. You know what you got to fix. But what happens a year from now? Or you make changes to that workload, you're going to want to make sure that you're staying well architected. You don't want to be in a position where a year from now, you're basically starting from scratch. You let things slide and you now have to go through and redo everything starting from square one. It's much better to stay well architected than letting it slip and starting all over. So NOps helps with that continuous monitoring piece and making sure that you're staying well architected. Again, the NOps rules will help you, stay well architected as long as you're meeting these particular requirements. And then we also have a dedicated wafer report, which, will help you stay in line with well architected best practices to ensure that, if you were to go through it again, it's going to be much easier. You're already familiar. You already know that you're staying well architected. So it should speed up that process there.
So Mike, I do have a couple questions if you're in a good point to pause.
Fire away.
Okay, so the first one would be, can I integrate these dashboards into a company's intranet portal, for example, or send reports to executives via email?
Yeah, great question. So right now, as far as sending it to an external portal or anything like that, that's not something that we support. I know we're looking at kind of opening up some of the APIs. So in theory, in the near future, you'll be able to pull whatever you need via API. But we do have some alerting in here. So if you wanted to send, some of the change management or the NOps rules reports to, anybody within an organization, you can do it via email, Slack, as well as, if you want to spin up tickets like with Jira or PagerDuty, there's ways to do that as well.
Awesome. And then second question really ties into some of what is available through like AWS Cost Explorer and Trusted Advisor, the tools that are available. The presumption is that this tool goes beyond what's available natively in AWS. What is this tool that AWS does not utilize? Maybe answer that in terms of either what's different or how it puts it all together from a well-architected perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's definitely some overlap there. Cost Explorer is a great tool. Trusted Advisor is a great tool. I know Trusted Advisor is an additional expense, if I'm not mistaken, to have access to those checks. We include all these things as a part of our offering. It's just built in. Same thing with the cost reporting that we have. I know from like a cost reporting perspective, I get a lot of questions around things like data transfer costs. I know those can be incredibly difficult to try and find in Cost Explorer. It's just a matter of going in and selecting, the usage types that you want. So there we go. There's our data transfer out bytes for US West 2. So it's as simple as, clicking on what you need to see there. I might be biased. I also find this a little bit easier to use and a little bit more pleasing to the eyes, but that's just me. But I guess really the biggest part is how it's all connected and tied to well-architected. We have our checks that we're running and we're all tying it back to the well-architected principles. So, as you saw, it streamlines the well-architected process. It's all connected here together. You're not bouncing around through different sections. It's all part of the platform. And we have partners and customers that use Cost Explorer, they use Trusted Advisor, and at the bare minimum, NOps is a great accent to those already great existing services.
Fantastic. Thanks. I think
Yeah.
that's it from questions.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's all I got for the NOps side. So I think, Gary, I'm turning it back over to you.
Yeah, let's get back to Kahoot. So I am share, get to the right screen and get back to the Kahoot quiz. And so everybody get ready while I'm getting set up to share. Get ready whether you're on your mobile device or if you're doing this on your separate browser, so that we'll go 2 questions from this section, and then we'll have Pong go through the 3rd module.
Hey Gary, real quick, I dropped that map of well-architected that I covered in the earlier session into the chat, so it's out there for everybody if they need it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ted. Okay. All right, so here we go. We'll click next and we'll get the next question. So this is where we stand as of after the 3rd question. So these next 2 are going to relate to the discussion that we just had with Toby and Mike. Here we go. Question 4. What is the main benefit from using NOps for well-architected reviews? See 8 answers. And we go. All right, 7 right answers, all the above. Let's see how it affected our leaderboard. Okay, who stays in the top? John and Nick. Next question. How much in free AWS credits can you earn for being well architected? Six answers, 7, 8, 4, 9 answers, 10. Look at that. 4 correct. Okay, so I will tell you that one was Mike slipped that one in. You had to really be paying attention. But the answer is up to $5,000 are available for credits for remediation, and we'll talk a little bit about that more next. But that was covered, but slipped it in, so you really had to be focused. So congrats to the 4 that got that one right, and let's see how that affected the leaderboard. Look at that, who's on fire? All 5 right, extending the lead out. Nick and Acadia are leading out the, filling out the podium. So we will pause here on this, and then I am going to hand things over to Hong from PTP. Let him introduce himself and then take the next section.
And let me double unmute myself. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. All right. I will share as well. There we go. All right. I think I can see it on my other screen, so I think you guys are seeing my slide. Hi, everyone. My name's Tom Pun. I'm cloud architect here at PTP. I'm going to walk you through, the NOps well architected output, from kind of what Mike showed you, but an export of that, and how we help make sense of the output and give guidance on prioritization and remediation strategies. But first, I do want to go into one thing, since we're on the topic of well architected, is the FTR. Just a quick high level on what it is, especially for ISVs looking to be eligible for programs such as AWS Competency, Service Ready, and many others. As we know, by now how NOps can help you streamline the well-architected process. They bring that, what I call it, auto discovery magic over to FTR as well. And FTR, as the foundational technical review, is just one of many lenses under the well-architected framework. There are others such as machine learning, IoT, etc. And as a prerequisite of those programs for an ISV, you will perform a well-architected review, either internally or with a partner like PTP, then perform the FTR lens, which has additional 12 questions that dive deeper into these 3 pillars shown: the security pillar, performance pillar, operational excellence pillar. And by doing so, it helps these ISVs accelerate delivery of their products and reduce risks for software delivered around the best practice of these pillars. It must be performed at least once a year, though. And it can be done with NOps, as mentioned earlier, and by one of our certified solutions architects. So this is just a quick overview of FTR, since NOps is a tool that it's a platform that does do both WAR and FTR. So I just want to quickly mention that. Do let us know if there's any questions in the Q&A or chat, and Gary and team will help answer. So with that, let me move over, bring the report over. to the first page. I should have started from the first page. There we go. Easier this way. Slide wasn't happening. There we go. So the report it's you'll get is it comes out as a PowerPoint, which is great for make it easy for you to present to anybody. I think it was one of the questions, with being able to show it to like management or not. And since it's PowerPoint, right, you can take pieces out, send it to certain teams that need to see it, like a security team or the finance team, just for their sections if there's anything that that they will be responsible for remediating. So let's run through. Mike was showing his demo. The report. This report shows these labeled questions, and in the upcoming pages will show questions that are labeled with, in this case, high priority and low priority. But beauty of labels are, you can name them however it fits your workload or environment that's being reviewed. We usually recommend using high, medium, low priorities. I have worked with ones where customer label which team will be responsible to help resolve some of these issues. And it will run through and list, per pillar, the questions that were labeled. And then on to recommendations. So as these recommendations, as Mike shown in the demo, again, are inserted as part of the questions of the review. Clear listing, on the top right, you can see the pillar that it's and the specific question that the recommendation is for. These can be as general as possible, right? And or as specific as you want, where you can simply kind of hand this off to your team to start executing and remediating issues. If you do have a team that can help remediate internally, or it would be recommendations from partner like PTP, where we offer insights into how we would approach remediating these violations. I'll just run through similarly other questions that on this sample report that we have that we make recommendations for. And then it would go through any violations on all the pillars, starting with security as well. As you can see, these are auto-discovered violations that NOps really help streamline with the well-architected review process. So this clearly lists what AWS recommends and what each questions, and you can see, the rest of these is very similar, but in its own detail, where sections would show you, some will show you IP, regions, account numbers. Common ones I've seen, I think some of you would agree, is not having MFA on root accounts, or simply like even implementing password policies, right? So just running through the rest of these. And of course, if you have notes inserted, as part of the process, they will show up as well. Again, I'm just going to run through. Security has a lot of these auto discovered ones, and as you can see, I think there's like 50 to 60 slides just almost purely from auto discovered. So you can see how NOps can really help shorten the time that one would need to go through one of these review by just having this feature, discovering and recommending. So cost pillar, as far as cost pillar, I would say something I see all the time is just unused resources. Just like Mike said, the low hanging fruits, instant savings. But it does surprise a lot of people just how many there are sometimes that are just left alone from testing or just forgotten. So these are ones for the cost pillar. Not going to go into each one, as these are just kind of for the demo purposes, but you can see some of the details it will report on, and how you can take that and help locate. I think it does. It shows you the volume ID, and then if it's EC2, it'll show you the instance name, so you can easily locate some of these. Knowing that not every issue can be remediated right away, we will work with you to provide a roadmap of short, medium, and long-term remediation goals. And you can leverage our CloudOps services to assist with remediation and make sure that you recognize these cost savings that are shown here, mitigating risks, and just making better informed decisions and building and having a well-architected workload. And with the question that you guys just had on the Kahoot, that the $5,000 up to $5,000 funding we can help unlock could be put towards us helping you remediate some of these or all of these findings and issues. I think that's I know I ran through the report pretty quickly, but that's pretty much for my piece. Are there any questions out there? Share. Oh, actually, I do have a slide. I know Mike slid it in there, but I'll just show you real quick. On the slide. No, I don't even know. Yeah, it's just this slide, so it'll help you with your questions that you already answered on Kahoot.
There you go. So yeah, that's obviously a great program and a great incentive from AWS on the $5,000 of the remediation for the qualified environment. So if anybody's got any interest in that, obviously reach out to us, and we can certainly help with that process. Okay, so I repeat, it looks like a question that I missed. And Hong, if you know this, you can answer it, or this might be Mike too. But and I know Mike alluded to this a little bit from the automation piece, but the question is, does this tool offer any hooks back into AWS to take actions like shut down resources based on some thresholds being breached, for example?
Yeah, I can answer this one real quick. So at this time, no, it doesn't. We decided to start and lead off with the company and be as hands-off of the AWS environment as possible. So everything that we're doing and getting into the platform is read-only. We're not making any changes on the AWS environment. It was a business decision for us, because once you start opening up those permissions to make changes, it certainly kind of, makes people like ask a lot of questions and curious as to what's going on. So right now, no changes. I know it's something that we have been entertaining. We don't know what that looks like quite yet, but we could see how, auto, deleting unused EBS volumes or something like that could be beneficial, so you're not platform hopping, so to speak. So more to come on that down the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's great, and I think the some of the point there is, especially like one thing we noticed from an organization doing the reviews is, you start at that high level, hey, here's all the data, and then to take action, a lot of times we're working with many different people on the application side to make sure that we understand what those apps are doing and things like that before we could ever create the level of automation that might turn things off that you wouldn't want to otherwise turn off. And so I think this is really from focus on visibility and awareness and understanding and reporting and governance. And then obviously there's lots of things that can be done from an automation perspective inside the environment with that information. So fantastic. Appreciate both of you there. So we are wrapped with the presentation. So next steps is we have our final 2 Kahoot questions. So we're going to find out who finishes on the podium. So everybody go ahead and get ready. I will go back to, let me take the ball back. Share my screen. All right. So here we are, final 2 questions. Get those fingers ready. And I will get to, I'm going to click next and we'll fire off question 6 of 7. Here we go. Which of the following is not part of the AWS Foundational Technical Review, the FTR?
Wish I had the Jeopardy theme song right now.
I know. Come on, Toby, just hum it a little bit for the next question.
So this one was really the difference in the 2. So we've got 5 correct answers out of that. It's not on cost optimization. The foundational technical review is on kind of the core technical components, whereas the cost optimization is part of the well-architected framework. So let's see how that adjusted the leaderboard. And
Who's still on top?
lead?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a little bit of movement, but the top 3 remain. All right, here we go. Final question of the quiz. $200 goes to first place. It looks like Pooh's got an insurmountable lead on first, but it looks like second and third are up for grabs. Here we go. 7 of 7. Which of the following can you expect when working with PTP on a well-architected framework review? Hopefully we get all those answers correct.
I like that goat.
I love the goat. I was just looking at the goat. That's awesome.
Greatest of all time, PTP. There you go.
So congrats that everybody got the 9. Yes, all the above. All those things are part of what we can do with the power of the tools from NOps, understanding the framework and providing some consulting and services with that. So let's see, here we go. Third place, Acadia, congratulations. Second place is Nick, and first place will be Pooh.
Good job, guys.
Good job.
All right, now if you guys wouldn't mind, Acadia, I can figure you out. Nick, I'm not sure how many Nicks we have, so if you wouldn't mind putting in chat your name or and then Pooh, same for you, so that we can go ahead and get you your gift cards out. Seeing that one. Fantastic.
You could just send Nick's gift card to me. I'll take it.
All right. Sure.
Are you really Nick, Toby? No.
Right? No.
Okay. Got it. Got Nick. Very, very good. Fantastic. All right. So what we have now is the final part was the AirPods Pro, courtesy of the NOps team. What I did was during Hong's last section, I went through a process and just used a randomizer tool on Excel and dumped all of our current attendees that were into that and ran that. So I do have the winner of that. So congratulations to Jay Durga of Kemper. You are the winner of a brand new pair of Apple AirPods Pro. So congratulations to you. I will be following up, Jay. I'll work with Toby, and we'll go ahead and get you out your AirPods to the 3 individuals that that won the quiz. We'll go ahead and get you out your gift card. So just, probably give me a couple days to get all that settled. And I just need to make sure. So I see Nick. Okay, gotcha. So who is Priya? Congratulations, Priya. And Nick Larson. I don't want to shut this down with the chat before I get this all down. And then we have Acadia is in 3rd place. Fantastic. So to our attendees who were part of the event, thank you very much for staying with us. It looks like we have just about everybody that was part of it at the start stayed on through the end. So really, really appreciate that. To our partners, Tad with Ingram, to Mike and Toby from NOps, Hong from PTP. Thank you guys very much. Really great session, getting some comments. They really appreciate it as well. So we're going to send, I'm going to send a follow-up email to everybody that was here with a link to a review that AWS and Ingram does from these well-architected segments. And if you'd like to provide any feedback to the group that participated, we'd love to hear about that. So with that, thank you very much. Really appreciate everybody's attention and hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.